screen. Is this good, Amar?
Yes, Pankaj, we can see your screen now. Over to you.
Thank you. Let's put this in a presentation mode. Just a second. Okay. Okay. So, guys, आज का टॉपिक जो मैंने चूज किया है वो एंटरप्राइज एसेट मैनेजमेंट के ऊपर है. आई थिंक इट्स अ रिलेटिवली न्यू मॉडल जो um, अभी कुछ ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं हुआ है इस मॉड्यूल को लॉन्च हुए पे. अभी ये year or 2 year back launch हुआ है. So it's a new model. Lot of people are maybe interested कि इसमें क्या capabilities हैं, when we should use it, क्या हम इससे achieve कर सकते हैं इसके utilization से. So I thought this is a good topic to talk about. A little bit of introduction about myself. My name is Pankaj Gupta. I work with Microsoft Consulting Services from the last 4 years. Been part of the Australia New Zealand team, and I help Microsoft to implement the dynamic solutions for customers who directly wants to implement with Microsoft, customer who have challenges implementing the dynamic solutions, or they're looking for an advisory, sort of from Microsoft, so to achieve their journey into the digital transformation. Okay, this is the agenda I tried to sort of put in together. First and foremost, I want to talk about the difference between the Dynamics field service and the enterprise asset management. Why we should use the field service and when we should use the field service compared to the enterprise asset management. So both modules have very similar capabilities. So we'll talk about that. And those both modules have their own propositions. So it's a very interesting things. Then in what scenario you should be using both modules. We'll talk about a little bit of history and value proposition, what asset management brings in on the table, and what really when you go and talk to the customer, what actually are bringing on to the table, right? We'll look at the asset management landscape. From the capability side, how it's actually integrated with all the other modules. We'll talk about the preventive and corrective maintenance, which is the essence, which is like the core of the asset management applications. So we'll talk about the flow, and if the time permits, I'll take you in through the system as well, and we'll see some demo as well. We'll see the things working into the system live. Some roadmaps, key takeaways, at the end of the session, and obviously floor will be open for the question and answer. Okay, so let's get started. The enterprise asset management and the field service. I have seen this is as a lot of confusion when you as a partner, or where you as a consultant, when you're actually talking to a customer, when you try to actually, let's say if it is a pre-sale, or when you're let's customer is interested to see, hey, I have this business where I'm managing the asset, what you can bring on the table, like what you can actually present. So the way that the dynamics have structured, we have the dynamics field service, and we have the dynamics supply chain, in which the asset management is kind of integrated. So I just highlighted a few points here. Predominantly, the asset management in Dynamics is for you to manage your internal assets. When I say the internal asset, the asset which is being managed by internally by an organizations by themselves. Um, they own the assets. The organizations own the assets. Where the field service capabilities comes into the picture, where you are working as a service organization and you're managing your customers' assets when you're looking after your customer assets. I think that's the biggest difference. Um, there is like a capabilities in the system which sort of overlaps. You can create the customer assets within the asset management, and there and vice versa in the field service you can also create the asset which is internal to your organization. The overlap is there, but the majority of the other functionalities, if you consider them, um, the field service is created a module to service outwards, which means customers asset, whereas the field asset management is predominantly it's developed to serve and do the maintenance of the internal assets. Geographically, if you see the scenarios, the assets for internal assets can be maintained within the same your organization sites. You could have the sites at the different location, but that's pretty much all about it. This is where you want to, see your assets in a plants, or in a warehouse, or in any other location, where as the customer asset can locate to anywhere where your customer resides. It could be, if I give an example of, like, say, Telstra in Australia, that's have customer all over the Australia. So if I'm Telstra and I'm servicing to my customer, um, field service is the way to go for me. If there is a request for the customer, I will go and go to the customer sites. Therefore, the field service comes into the picture. Um, Asset management is heavily integrated with all the other uh, modules within the finance and ops. Naturally, it's in when we say it's a dynamics or in finance and ops and a ERP product, so it has to actually integrate with all the other modules. That's the power of the asset management, right? um, Whereas the field service also interacts with all the other modules, like with the sales and the sales and the other C modules. It does interact it very well, but it has not been financially interact with the finance and operation natively, right? Last but not the least, the most important differentiator between both modules is to field service is designed to maximize revenue, which means you're servicing to the customer, you're earning revenue, your capabilities are being designed in a way that you maximize your revenue. How it does that? By optimizing the routes for your technician, for examples, like it has a capability that it suggests the quickest and the fastest route to reach to a customer, how you manage your schedule efficiently, that so that you can you know um, maybe complete more jobs in a day. So those kind of things actually helps you to maximize your revenue. Whereas the if I talk about the asset management is to minimize the cost. By I'll go to into the little bit of deep down onto the the capability wise, like what does it brings to the picture, and therefore the objective is to minimize the cost. Okay, a little bit of history about this module. Microsoft bought this module from a company called Dynaway that used to be our biggest ISV into the asset management space. Um, they had more than half of the asset management market before it was integrated within the product. Therefore, it was natural for Microsoft to adopt this module and integrate within the application. I think the bot was happened in 2018, and the Microsoft took 2 years to actually enhance some of the capabilities and to integrate it better with the other modules. And if I'm not wrong, I think it was late um, last quarter of 2020, it was made available, um, generally available for everyone, and it has become the part of the product. The value proposition that I just touched based is to minimize the cost. Um, again, the organizations who have a large set of assets where the business actually revolves around the assets, they need to use some sort of capabilities to manage their assets, whether they use any other specialized product. If they use Dynamics, the Dynamics actually now has its own asset management capabilities. So we are working with some of the customer who have been using the best of the best asset management products, but considering they're also using Dynamics in their organization, they are now getting on board to implement asset management within Dynamics. What it does for them now, it's a one platform, one integrated platform, the asset management with the other, the other modules, the other areas of the application. The 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 platform is familiar with the customer, and it reduces the number of the applications for the customer, which is the biggest thing. You do not want 150 applications running in your customer environment, and you have to have a specialized team to manage all the application. So we are actually doing those kind of transformations as well. um, by having the full-fledged asset management solution, what you achieve is to reduce the maintenance cost. If you are on top of your game, if you're on top of your managing your asset, which could be, for an organizations, like we've implemented this for an organization who manages, who runs their businesses using the ships and the containers. So for them, if they don't manage their ships and containers, maintenance, that's the backbone of their business. Their business won't do good, right? By doing so, they reduce the cost, they extend the life of the asset, they improve the asset availability and performance by reducing the number of breakdowns, by acting fast on the breakdowns, and so on. So by achieving all those things, you're actually improving the efficiency in your organizations by maintaining your assets on time. Right. When we talk about the asset management by industry standards, there are 5 different models that we look at what involves into the asset management. This is pretty much standard across all industries, specialized asset management industries. What we do from the Dynamics, we support all these scenarios. For example, your reactive and corrective maintenance, which is your breakdown, break fix kind of a scenarios where something is breaks on without any prior information, and you need an urgent um, repair. So that is able to achieve within the system. Then you do your schedule maintenance. Schedule is the timely maintenance of your assets. Like annually, you do maintenance work on your assets, biannually, quarterly, depending on what kind of assets you use. It is important to schedule your maintenance on time so that you have, your assets are not, you know, give any issues while running in the future, and you actually have a large life expectancy. Um, One of the examples I give to everyone who sort of try to understand this, you can relate it to your, this with your servicing of your car is the best example. Everyone actually, go through these scenarios. There's a annual service or the biannual service of the car that you have to go through. The moment you achieve a particular number of the kilometers or you achieve that date, you have to take your car to the service. If you don't take it, the next time you are on the road and the car can break anytime, right? So that's kind of your schedule work you have to do in order to keep your assets running longer. But also on the same scenario, say if you take in your car, unexpectedly things happens, you take your car on the road and it gets punctured. If it gets break down on the road, then that's your reactive kind of scenarios. um, Now, there's a third model, which is a condition-based maintenance monitoring. It's again, I'll relate back to the car. Is if you have those high models, high valued car, they have sensors in this car. They When you rent the car, it actually shows within the dashboard, like what's is wrong with the car. If the car is making a sound, if there's a specific things wrong in that car. So the car has all the sensors and everything. It can give you the indication right there, so that you have to take the car to see to the mechanic. Similar kind of thing in all industries where you have those the asset monitoring devices attached to your assets. That data can be captured and that data can be analyzed to do the maintenance of the asset on time. Predictive maintenance. um, Predictive maintenance is when you actually do some analysis on the data, and then you actually, this is where your AI comes into the picture, your machine learning comes into the picture. You keep on analyzing the data and you predict before the event happens, that this car can break in the next 3 months, because it's we are reading the data from the different sources and it's not giving good signs. So those kind of the maintenance model is also supported. Then you comes into your cognitive maintenance, the intelligence operations. um, this is kind of it's a future state, as you can see, but in the industries, they have all different kind of specialized the tools and etc, which kind of keeps monitoring your device, but also um, suggest in a different ways. It innovates and suggests you the different ways how this can be preventive in the future. So those kind of things is also very available. Like, organizations are catching up on these things very quickly. The landscape of the asset management, um, where you see the dark blue boxes in this slide, is what actually the asset management brings as part of this new module, right? And what you see, the gray, the boxes, is you already have in the system, right? You already have as part of the other modules. For example, the acquire section of the assets. This is your fixed asset processes that you already have, um, and the retire. But if you see in the middle, it's a manage and maintain. That's where the new capabilities come to the picture. And the bottom horizontal line is all your modules, where the natively the asset management talks to these module, right? And obviously it's when we talk about the dynamics, it integrates with the other aspects or the other areas of the dynamics, whether it's common data. Apologies, that's now data worse. It's an old slide. The Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. All right, this is the journey of a breakdown, and I just want to touch base on the process and some of the key terminologies here because typically this is the flow that the system actually presents, and each of the step there's a lot of capabilities in the system that you can utilize, you can implement. So for example, the observation work request, how you get a maintenance request or a work request could be, there are different ways. You have a portal where the people are registering the breakdown and submitting it for your asset management team to review and create the work order. You have the sensors attached to your assets. When I talked about the sensors, I've just given an example of a car, but in an organization, if you have high value assets, you have the IoT device linked to those assets. Those devices sense the signal to your Azure or to your IoT monitoring devices, which actually generates a work request, right? Or you have a mobile app within your organization where it's right there with the people who are working on the floor, or it's a shop floor, or it's a warehouse. If they see a problem, they can actually generate a work request. So there are different channels where the work request can come in, which would be transformed into a work order. So the work can actually confirmed and approved. Obviously, not everything which is requested can be converted to a work order. Sometime, it can be just be a false alarm. It can be something else. So a work will be approved when there is a genuine request. The work order will be created, and after that there's a scheduling part in the system where you can actually have a different teams of the resources in the system, which would be schedule, which would be available for schedule based on the different calendars on the work order. Once you have the person scheduled onto the work order, in some scenarios, if there is a need of a buy of a product or a tool or something, you have to procure the things before you actually can fix it. There is an ability in the system that you can generate a purchase order or a purchase requisition from the work order, right? Let's say if you have all the works, tools and equipments ready, and you're ready to fix that, you release the work. Now the technician will actually go and perform the work, complete the work. The completions eventually can have a different step as well, and the times and the materials will be captured when the work will be complete. Excuse me. So when the time and materials are captured, they become the basis of the cost that will be captured in the system. Asset can be updated after that with the faults or with the counter. I'll just talk about these concepts in a more details in a next few slides. And after that, the work order will be closed. When the work order will be closed, you will have the data in the system, which will be available to do the performance monitoring and run your dashboard reports and etc. So this is typically a breakdown journey of a reactive on a corrective work journey within the system. The next wheel is a journey of a preventative work. The work which is will be scheduled in the already to execute the work order into the future. So there are two main way that you can schedule your work: preventative work, that you can set your rules based on the counters, or you can set your rules based on the dates. Again, giving you example of the car. When you service your car, the next time they will put a sticker on your car saying your next service is due on 10,000 kilometer or on this date, whichever comes first. So what they say, if you achieve a 10,000 kilometer first, or you have reached to that particular date, that means your car is due for the service. So the first example is your counter based service. You're actually countering the number of kilometers, or a counter can be anything, right? Your counter can be number of kilometers, your temperature, your number of hours of running of a machine, or it could be simply the number of hours that the asset is on. So those kind of countermeasures being captured in the system as well. And like I said, the date-based control is also there. Then you run your um, then you run your work order schedule job. There's a framework, the batch framework, which automatically runs in the background, which looks at all this data. And when the time comes, it looks and analyze those rules and create the work order schedule for you, which will be a preventative work order schedule. That work orders can be directly generated in the system, but there is a way in the system that you can first generate a schedule where an asset managers can actually review the schedule and then convert to the work order. But you have the capability in the system that you can directly generate the work order as well when the time comes, when the job runs, right? The rest of the process is same, like I mentioned, from the preventative, from the corrective or the reactive side. The rest of the process is same. You still have the ability to procure this stuff. You still will be have the ability to have released the work to the different technician. Work will be performed, time and material will be captured, the asset will be updated, and the work order will be closed. So that's the flow of the preventative work. All right, so I will not drain down this slide, but from the key capabilities perspective, these are the things which the module brings in. It's a very big module. So I will not actually go down to the each and every aspect of these things, but on the high level, um, you have these all the capabilities available in the system. For example, the resources, the ability to define your assets, your locations, and your tools, materials, bombs for the asset will be there in the system. Like I mentioned, the request of the work order management is how you get the request before a work order or a breakdown in the system. So that capability is already there. The work order planning is, how will you actually use your, the worker skills and the certificates and schedules. The planning workbench is available in the system as well. Preventive and breakdown, we just talked about that. The tracking the cost of the asset. So by capturing the time and material against the asset, you're actually capturing in the cost. So system will actually track each and everything uh, from the cost perspective if you register that cost to the work order. Manageable consumable spares natively integrates with the inventory management and the product management of the system. So you can define your inventory products, that the spare parts, etc., that will be used during this process. Um, so it's all there. The next is the analytical and report. So we have some inbuilt dashboards also available. You also have some of the the query based reports where you can see your the asset mean time breakdowns and those kind of reports is available in the system. Um, the advanced integration with IoT, we do have some natively integrated with the features which reads the data from the IoT. There is a very good ISVs also which will present a solution outside Dynamics to manage all your the IoT devices hub and their sensor, their data. So you not just in Dynamics, you can do some analysis on this data even outside the Dynamics. So there's a good ISV available in the markets as well. And obviously there is a the mobile version of the app. Uh, the mobile app is also available to manage your work on the field. All right, it's a demo time. Um, Amar, how are we tracking the time?
Still, we have 10 minutes. Still, we have 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. So I'll just move my screen and try to share my environment. Are you guys can see my environment?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, so the modules that we just talked about, the asset management module, it's available under the module section. The scenario I want to talk about is to quickly show you guys one quick flow of the corrective maintenance and one quick flow of the preventive maintenance. I created an asset, which is again for a car. This is a BMW X5, and it's actually the asset type is vehicle, and it's been assigned to a location. Okay. Um, Before I actually go and create a work order, I want to actually show you some of the setups as well. So under the setups, there's a job section. Um, there's this form called maintenance job type defaults. I'll just quickly open this. There's a lot to be shown in this, in this module, but due to the time limitation, I'll just keep it very light and quick. So what happens here is I can set up some of the default forecasting of my different types of jobs. So for example, if I'm doing a services of this asset, um, I have defined some forecast. So I've defined, for example, these two products. Every time I take my car to the service, I'll replace these two products. So I use these two products, and these are my costs for these things. Any other things, for example, I charge the labor, or I charge any expenses, other expenses. I can all add all these as a forecast, and I can define these rules. What I can also define is after that is my default checklist, right? What this checklist does is actually provides, let me just take you through the setup of this checklist. It actually provides the step-by-step instruction for the technician is what it needs to be, he or she needs to be doing while servicing the car. For example, brake fluid check, the oil quality check. These are the steps can be easily configured in the system, right? And the information can be captured in the system. So I have set up these things, and I have set up these as a default rules for my job, right? Next time I go and let's we go straight away to the work order. Let's create a work order, right? So I'll say this is a corrective type of work order, and say car service for Mr. R, or let's say if it is belongs to any department, I'll pick up my asset and pick up a job type called service. So by default, it actually, I have a rules can be defined in the system. It automatically can pick up the different service level, which would define, what is the expected time of a job can be finished or not. But let's just keep it in simple. Let's just keep it. This is a service level 4. You know, okay, right. So a work order has been created with the expected start date and the end date. Um, the asset line is created. You could add more asset lines if that's the scenario, but let's say if we're just working on one asset, it's just created. What system also does is when you create a work order, it actually generates a project in the background, right? So when I said that it's natively integrated with all the other modules, it actually uses the project accounting module in the background as the basis of capturing these costs and registering it for the work order. So it creates a project in the background and it attaches that project to that work order, right? There is a setup involved. You can set up a different type of projects for different work. So that's all configuration. So when this work order is generated based on my rules, it actually picks up some of the forecasted the elements that I have set up. I haven't set up the hours and the expenses. I've just set up few items. So say we need these items to complete this work. And also it brought in the checklist that I have to complete. Right. So let's say I go and I I release this work order. I say, yeah, everything good, release the work order. Release, the status changed to released, which means now I can go and schedule this work order. So let's say the scheduling works. So that might actually, throw some error or not. Yeah, so there's a whole lot of capacity, etc. of check of the work of your worker, available worker, and all your different resources. But this moment, let's say I have infinite capacity, so that it won't give me any error. So you could have even set up the rules in the system for this particular job type or this asset. There is a specific person that can only attend this job, and that can be, the person can have a specific skill set. So you can have all those rules set up as well. So when I run this job, so it actually see if it's brought in this person, Ted Howard, and this could be different rules, right? Ted Howard can be a specialist who just manages this car, right? Or Ted Howard can be a specialist who works in this particular location, right? So depending on what your organization need, actually you can set up these rules in the system, right? So the scheduling actually did two things. It actually assigned a resource, and it actually assigned the schedule and start and end time of the job as well. So next time that person will go, I don't have the mobile app ready at this moment. Apologies. I cannot display that on the phone. So Ted will log in onto his mobile and he will try to complete the work order. So no worries on Ted's behalf. I'll just go and complete this work order. Before I go, I'll say I'll in progress this work order, right? Which actually sets the actual time. So which means as a TED, I have now started this work. The work has been started. Um, the person will go and complete the checklist. So this is done. And as I'm moving this it's actually, I'm checking the brake fluid. I'll say light brown, clear, everything is good. The oil quality was clear, so there's no major issue. No issues. Save. The work has been done, right? From the checklist perspective, it's completed. Now, Ted as a person, I can now what I can do a few things. I can copy this if this is my standard work. Every time I take 1 hour or the time that I define or forecasted, I just copy this from the my forecast. So straight away it will just bring in these value here, right? So this is like a faster mechanism. So we only had items, so it just brought in these items, right? And my work is complete. Now I'll go and complete the work order. Now before that, like I could add even more. So let's say, oops, wrong form. Apart from this product, I actually had incurred, I spent 5 hours on this job. So I'll just put 5 hours. And there's a nominated cost per hour defined based on this cost category. Based on that, it's calculated this total amount. I'll just close this. The next thing is I'll just go and complete this work. Complete. Oops, what's the error? Sorry, I think I didn't pick up the right date because it's validates if I submitting the incorrect. So 31st of 7th, 3 of 8th. That's my, let's say this is my end date of the work. So now you see the status changes of the work order is completed and my work order is ready to be finalized. When I say finalized, the financially, if you have another person who actually goes and financially close this work order, there's another step that can be taken, can be financially closed, which will actually post these costs into the your financial entries, right? Or this can be automated on the completed step as well. So your work order has been completed. The reason why it's taking a little bit of time because it's actually posting the financial entries. Oh, something happened. All right, so there's some inventory error, but don't worry about it. But this is the way. Then you end the work order. All your, the item transaction, which will all your time material have been posted. You could see those transactions going here under the project transactions. I think the posting failed because of the error. Otherwise, you would see those posting transactions. After that, once you have posted that, I'm just running a quick report to see the actual cost. There's a cost control feature here as well. Like you can view actually what was your forecasted cost, how much is actually incurred, and those kind of things. So if you see the anomalies, if you see the variations of something was forecasted and this, but now I see the huge difference, that's for me to actually take an action from there, right? It's those kind of reports is available that we talked about, the things which will measure the KPIs, asset KPIs, the asset, the uptime, downtime, those things can be all measured into the reporting. So that was a quick walkthrough of your corrective work. I think Amar, I think we are running close to the time here. Like I said.
Yes, Pankaj, thank you very much for your session. I have one question. I think due to the time constraint, I will only ask the one question, which is something about, let me just, it is how sync or integrated EAM module is with the other modules, like production or master planning. Is it sync with that one or not?
Yes, it is. So let me just quickly talk about the integration with the other modules. So I think there was a one session which we attended into our ANZ community, where Mani actually showed the production floor execution screens, right? Um, so you would have noticed that from the production floor execution, they have now included this option that they can generate the work order straight from the production floor. For example, like if a worker is working on a floor and they see something is wrong with the machine, they can even raise a work order straight from their execution screen. So that means the work order will be created straight away into the asset management. And if you have the time and the calendar defined for your resource, that means the resource also linked to an asset. So a production resource can be an asset as well. So that downtime of that resource can actually be calculated towards your production as well, production downtime. Also, so that's the production integration. You can even create um, a purchase order from here. So
Okay.
the one I think I showed you into the flow, there's a purchase order creation scheme. Screen is here. There's the ability to create a production order from here as well. So in case if you need to produce something to complete your work, that means a production order can be raised. If you have to procure something, there's a purchase order from here that can be created. So those kind of capabilities are there, and everything will be integrated together.
Tha- yep. Thanks, Pankaj. And there is last question. I'm just taking a last question because there
Sure.
was too many questions. Yeah. Is it possible to capitalize any cost through this process?
Um, the capitalize the cost on the asset, you mean?
Yep.
Um, yes, there is a way. So there is a work order type called um, I think it's called overhaul, or there's a work order type. There's a specific type work order type defined the overall. What it does when I create this work order, see this is linked to a project. This project type is an internal project, right? So when you create a work order of type and overhaul, you can link that work order type to your investment project, right? So same process will follow. All the cost and everything will be registered via the work order, but your project in the behind will be your investment project. And from there, you can actually take the cost and capitalize it towards your fixed asset. But that
Oh,
process of capitalizing it towards a fixed asset is a kind of a manual process. It doesn't do automatically. So, because in a way, if you can think about one fixed asset can have multiple maintainable asset. So that relation is not straight away, it's a one-to-one relation. So when you capitalize the cost from the project, you actually have to do manually, you manually have to pick a fixed asset and move that cost to that fixed asset.
okay. Thanks, Pankaj. And there are some comments from India as well, which they are really thanking you. And when India is saying that thank you, Pankaj, it was very helpful.
Thank
So
you so
it
much. Thank you guys. I hope